Hi, I'm Dr. Haji, and this is Don't Lose Marks on APA Style. A little bit about me. I worked as a full-time university professor for more than a decade. I've supervised many honors theses and graduate theses, and I've also been a course instructor for thesis and major paper courses. I'm continuing to work as a university professor on a part-time basis and now teach courses online. I'm applying my skills and many years of experience in my academic coaching business, Thesis Doctor Inc., which is aimed at providing supplemental support to students who are doing an honors thesis or graduate thesis. I consult on various topics like research design, statistics, publishing your thesis, presenting at a conference, and more. Practice proposals and defenses are also among the services that I offer. I also provide time management coaching, which is especially relevant for students who are ABD or who have completed all their degree requirements except for their thesis and are struggling to get the thesis completed. For more information about my coaching services, please see thesis.doctor. Why am I giving this workshop? Over my many years of teaching, I consistently see students needlessly losing marks over APA style. In my courses, I typically deduct half a mark for every APA style error, but then have to cap it at some point so students don't lose too many marks. APA style can make the difference in your grades between an A and an A plus, and that can be very important if you are applying to graduate school or trying to compete for scholarships and funding. I like to think of APA style marks as free marks that students can earn if they put the time and effort into learning the rules. When I was an undergraduate student, I took a course on scientific communication and psychology, and we learned and were tested on APA style. However, for many students, APA style is not something they were taught, but something they were just expected to know. Why even bother with this system of rules that we know as APA style? Well, first of all, APA style provides a common language which makes communication more easy. So when we're looking at references and we see the way a title is formatted, we're able to tell if it's a journal title or a journal article title, for example. APA style provides precision because certain relevant details are required, such as digital object identifiers, which I'll be talking more about. And APA style also provides transparency so others can look up our sources easily. If you are a graduate student in a psychology program or related field, you should consider getting your own copy of the APA manual as a reference. Note the manual goes beyond referencing and formatting and describes what you should include in various sections of a scientific report or thesis in psychology. It also describes bias free language, which is very important in scientific communication. Other students can refer to reference copies of the manual, which should be available in your university library, and these websites that I have listed here. So, the website for OWL Purdue or the APA style website. So, let's say you need to put an assignment into APA style. The first thing that it's important to do is verify expectations. So, where exactly is APA style required? If it's for a classroom assignment, is it required throughout or only for references and in-text citations? So, it's important to follow any requirements that your course instructor has laid out or guidelines that are specified by a journal. These supersede APA style. In this presentation, I'm going to be showing you a few essential aspects of APA style references, and then I'll be getting into levels of heading, which is an often overlooked aspect of APA style. So for in-text citations, one thing that's very important to note is that you should be putting author names in parentheses rather than in the main text. So I have an example here. Instead of in your text having wording like Haji, McCune, Jones, and Matthews 2020 conducted a study that found, you can use wording like a recent study and then have the author's names and in parentheses, found that, and so on. So note that 7th edition APA style um, puts 3 authors as et al. Even in the first citation. Okay, and of course we are dealing with 7th edition APA style here because that is the current edition of the APA manual. So here's an example of a reference for a journal article, and there's a few things I would like to point out. So we have the author's surnames here. The surnames are followed by a comma, and then the first initial followed by a period for each author. The names are separated by an and% sign, not the word and. We have the publication year followed by a period. Now, this is the title of the journal article. Notice that only the first letter of the first word is capitalized, and the first letter of the first word of the subtitle is capitalized. The rest of the words are in lowercase. Then we have the title of the journal. Okay, so this is the name of the journal. In this case, each of the main words begins with a capital letter. This is followed by a comma, the volume number, another comma, and notice that the title of the journal is in italics, and so is the volume number. If you had an issue number here, it would be included in parentheses, but the issue number would not be in italics. And then you have the page range. The last element here is what is known as the digital object identifier. And that is an often overlooked aspect in references as well. Older editions of APA style did not require this, but certainly this is required now, and it is generally expected that you would include the digital object identifier. Here's an example of a reference for a book. We have the author's surname, first initial, middle name initial. These are each followed by a period. The publication year within parentheses followed by a period. The title of the book. Notice that only the first letter of the first word is capitalized and the first letter of the first word of the subtitle. In this case, the first word is only one letter, which is why the whole word is capitalized. The title of the book is in italics. Because this book had multiple editions, it also notes that it was the 4th edition in parentheses. And then this is the name of the publisher, which is also followed by a period. This is another example of a reference for a book, but this time the book has a digital object identifier, or DOI. So we have the author's surname and initials, the publication year, the title of the book, 2nd edition, within parentheses, and then in this case, the publisher was American Psychological Association, followed by a period, and then the digital object identifier. Sometimes you won't be referencing a whole book, but just a chapter within a book. So in this case, we have a book chapter from an edited book in which the chapters were contributed by different authors. So we have the authors of the chapter, their surnames here, followed by first initial and the publication year. We have the title of the chapter, only the first letter of the first word is capitalized for the chapter title. And then it says in, and then this is the first initial of the first editor, the surname of the first editor, and %, first initial of the second editor, and surname of the second editor, followed by eds in parentheses, and then the title of the edited book, Children in Peace. So the first letter of the first word is capitalized, and then the first letter of the first word of the subheading is capitalized. And then the publisher name and the digital object identifier. I'd like to say a few words about referencing software. Various programs exist, and they may even be available for free through your university. So the advantages of these software programs is that they help you to keep your references organized and they cut down on your work. I would raise one word of caution, however, and say that you should use this referencing software to help you prepare your draft reference list, but always check and correct any errors, spell out abbreviations, and ensure the DOI is included. So now I'm turning to levels of heading, which is an often overlooked aspect of APA style. Levels of heading basically refers to a system of organizing headings and subheadings. When you're writing a paper, you should ask yourself if a subheading would make your writing easier for the reader. Headings provide signposts and give the reader an overview of the content. Using a standardized system makes your communication clearer, and keeping the style of heading standard and consistent also makes your writing appear more professional. I'm only going to be showing a few examples of levels of heading because you can find this information in the APA manual and at the style websites that I mentioned, but I'll be showing a couple of examples of the most common levels of heading that will be used in student papers. So the first example is for 3 levels of heading. So here we have the highest level of heading in the example, which is for method, which is centered and bold-faced. Then the next level of heading is measures, which is bold-faced and at the far left. And the level of heading below that is for social dominance orientation, which is bold-faced at the far left and in italics. If you only had 2 levels of heading, you would use the style that is being used for method and for measures. But if you had multiple measures that you wanted to list, then 3 levels of heading would be appropriate, in which case you would list social dominance orientation and then the next measure in your list, let's say political orientation. So this is an example of what 4 levels of heading would look like. So the highest level of heading in this example is study 1, which is centered and bold-faced. Then we have method, which is bold-faced and at the far left. And we have measures, which is also bold-faced at the far left and in italics. So if we had multiple measures that we wanted to list, we would use the style that is being used here for social dominance orientation. Social dominance orientation is indented, bold-faced, and followed by a period. And the description or the paragraph would begin on the same line. Normally, you wouldn't really see more than 4 levels of heading in a student paper. Up to 5 levels of heading are possible in APA style. A few final words about levels of heading. Don't forget that in a scientific report, introduction is an implied heading that would be at the same levels as method, results, discussion, and references. In a multi-study paper, you need another level of heading to show that study 1 and study 2 and general discussion are at higher levels of organization than method, results, discussion of the individual studies. Thank you for watching this presentation on APA style. If you found the information helpful, you may wish to check out my academic coaching services at www.thesis.doctor. Not all the services are listed, so if you have a particular inquiry, feel free to send me an email. And you can also sign up through the website for our mailing list, in which you will get information about our offers as well as free live webinars.